They told me not to play the audio past 2:14 a.m., but of course, that's the first thing I did. The waveform on my screen looked normal, steady, quiet, like a sleeping heartbeat until it didn't. A thin spike rose, then another, like nails climbing a wall. When I boosted the gain, I heard a breath that wasn't his. Not a draft, not plumbing, not the elevator groan. A wet inhale, close to the mic, followed by a whisper on the wrong side of the tape. If you're listening with headphones, take them off now. I didn't. On November 9, 2019, at the Northern Pines Motor Lodge off Highway 2, just outside Kalispell, Montana, a traveling insurance adjuster named Eric Barnes checked into room 308 for one night. The weather had turned, the kind of early winter that smells like pennies and old smoke. The motel sits low and long, a strip of doors under broken sodium lights. Across the lot, a shuttered diner leaned against the wind. I arrived 2 years later with files, permission to access the archives, and a small recorder that clicks when the room gets colder. At 11:47 p.m., Eric called the front desk to complain about footsteps above him. The clerk Jenna confirmed there was no fourth floor. She laughed, then caught herself, apologizing. The ceiling in 308 had a water stain shaped like a hand, fingers splayed toward the door. Eric mentioned it to her too. She offered to move him. He refused. "I'll be out by 6, he said. He had an inspection at dawn, a ruptured pipe 30 miles north. It was easier to stay put. He always stayed put. Room 308 is an ordinary room, which is the worst kind. Wood veneer furniture bolted to the walls. A queen bed with a recessed headboard that smells faintly of soap and something sweet, like old flowers. A split-unit heater that exhales tepid air. The carpet bites when you kneel, stiff with the memory of spills. The window faces the parking lot and the dark line of pines beyond. When you stand in the bathroom with the door halfway open, the mirror gives you a second of yourself, out of step, as if the reflection is still deciding whether to follow. Eric's voice, on the surviving audio, starts crisp weather report, mileage, the soft clack of a ballpoint pen, and then drifts as the night passes. He was practicing his testimony for the morning. He liked to speak into the recorder. The habit makes men feel less alone. You can hear him set the phone alarm, peel back the bedspread, exhale. The heater kicks on. Something metallic ticks as it cools. In the pause between those noises, a soft scuff, like a shoe pivoting in dust. He says, quietly, "Hello," in a way that suggests he hopes no one answers. The first interference appears at 12:31 a.m., a thin chorus of high frequencies undulating like insects behind the drywall. It isn't the heater. I matched the signature. It isn't the road. The highway rests at that hour, only one semi every 10 minutes. The waveform swells when the bathroom door moves just an inch, just enough to let colder air creep along the tile. If you stand there now, you'll notice it. A seam of cold, like a coin pressed to your wrist. Precise, intimate. My recorder clicked, registering the drop. Eric says, "Stop." He doesn't say who to. He tries TV. The set in 308 takes a moment to warm. The picture blooms gray before it volunteers color. The audio fights him, volume bar climbing while the sound crawls. He flips through infomercials, a late movie, a home shopping host, gesturing with ringed fingers. Between channels, the static lingers longer than it should, edges lifting into a hiss that sounds like language sped up beyond meaning. He mutters an apology to nobody. The remote slides across the bedspread and taps the headboard, a small, nervous metronome. He says, "I know you're there," then laughs. Embarrassed at 12:57 a.m., the footsteps begin not above, where the roof sleeps under a skin of frost, but down the corridor, coming closer. The carpet out there swallows sound, but you can still count the weight. Heel toe, a pause, heel toe. He holds his breath, and I catch mine with him. The steps stop outside 308. The peephole dimly blooms. In the microphone, there's a hollow resonance, as though someone has pressed their mouth against the door and is tasting the wood. Eric whispers, "Jenna," but the front desk is locked, and Jenna has gone home. He approaches the door. We hear the chain slide softly, the deadbolt test, the latch nibble, the strike plate. He stands there a long time, the kind of long you only understand when you replay it and count 15 seconds. 20, 30 while a faint scraping drags along the threshold. Not like keys, not like a shoe, like skin, a chalky, patient drag. The heater cuts off. The room listens. The scraping stops. right under the seam where the light from the parking lot turns the bottom of the door into a thin gold blade. He says, "Please don't." At 1:03 a.m., the phone rings. The motel line shows us private when it calls the room, but we don't need the display to know. The bell is too loud for the space, a mechanical shriek that keeps ringing a heartbeat after it stops. Eric answers. Between his hello and the silence that follows is the distance of a stairwell. I isolated the background. There's wind in there, and something like paper flapping, and, just under it, a voice repeating his name the way a child repeats a lesson. Eric. Eric until it stops sounding like a name at all. He puts the receiver down without pressing END, and it sways, tapping the cradle with a bowl's soft chime. He goes to the window. The curtains in 308 are heavy, but they leak around the edges like they're tired of holding back night. Through that leak, the parking lot looks smaller than it is, as if the glass pinches distance. He lifts the curtain. The lot glows with those sodium lamps, that false, bruised daylight. Every car is rimmed with frost. On each hood, you can watch a patch of melting appear, slowly, as if something warm has leaned in to listen. Eric retreats. He tries to rationalize. He lists possibilities into the recorder with a bureaucrat's cadence. Faulty wiring, nearby construction, an animal in the duct, pranksters, the ice maker hiccuping in a locked service room. He's convincing. For a few minutes, the room almost agrees. The heater sputters back. The air smells like dust and copper coins, and his breathing finds a rhythm. He lies down again, and the bed offers its cheap, friendly The lamp hums. The stain on the ceiling seems to relax its fingers, gently, until one shadow doesn't follow the rest. At 1:19 a.m., the bathroom light flares on by itself, just a sting. Then darkness, like someone has put their thumb against the switch and changed their mind. The audio catches a faint, wet click. He says, "No. I'm done, and the documentary part of my brain's believing in cause and effect wants to climb into the tape and rearrange it into something useful, but it won't allow it." The next noise is a whisper that isn't a word. It's the shape of breath discovering a throat it didn't expect to find. He calls the highway patrol from his cell. The call log shows 1:22 a.m. The transcript shows 6 minutes on hold. You can hear the recorded voice promise a representative soon. While he waits, the tap in the bathroom turns itself a fraction, enough to let a thread of water fall, bead by bead, into a basin that remembers too many faces. Plink, plink, plink. Each drop is louder than the last, not because it is, but because fear fattens sound. The recorded voice returns just as the drops stop. He hangs up without speaking. The hallway camera, an old grainy unit that paints moving people into ghost captures. A figure outside 308 at 1:31 a.m. It has the height of a man, the slope of a shoulder, the absence of a face. It pauses at the door and then turns to the wall and presses itself there. The way a moth will lay its body flat against a surface when threatened. It stays like that too long. When it finally leaves the frame, the timestamp buzzes and flickers, adding and subtracting a minute, as if deciding which second to keep. Inside the room, Eric packs. The audio hears zippers, the shiver of hangers, the clatter of a travel mug. Calm, efficient. A man who has decided to leave before dawn becomes an accusation. He keeps speaking low, bargaining with something that does not bargain. He says, "I'm not mad. I'm not. I don't live here. I'm almost gone." The bag thuds near the door. The recorder picks up his keys, the jangle too bright for the hour. Then, very close to the mic, a second breath matches his and holds when he exhales. At 1:44 a.m., the alarm he set for 5:15 goes off on its own. The tone is gentle but insistent, a string of digital birds pecking the air. He fumbles for the phone, and the tone cuts, but it's replaced by a single note that rises, long enough to become a compartment in the room, and then drops 2 semitones, as if someone weighed the air with a hand. From the bathroom, the mirror clicks, that faint tick glass makes when it shifts against a frame. He says, "Don't do that," and means the mirror, and means everything else. Here is the part where the rational story fractures. Eric opens the door. The chain is still on. He peers through the gap. The corridor is empty and seems to be waiting. The ice machine down the hall coughs once, and then exudes a blocky rattle like teeth. He closes the door again and sets the chain back, slowly, as though speed might argue with whatever watches him. The light by the window tightens to a thinner gold. Across the lot, something moves among the pines, not a person, not an elk, a shape that insists on being a shape. At 1:58 a.m., he tries prayer. He forgets the words and makes new ones that probably work better. Not mine, he says. Not mine. He touches the headboard as if it might be a relic. He sits on the edge of the bed and rocks once, twice, like a man who remembers a child he didn't have. The room responds by settling subfloor, ductwork, a gulp somewhere in the plumbing as if matching his motion. Then the bathroom door, which was open a hand's width, swings until it stops with a rubber-lipped hush that sounds uncomfortably like yes. The cold arrives exactly at 2:04 a.m. The click on my own recorder jumps as I replay it. The temperature in my little listening room falls hard enough to make the window sweat. You hear it in the tape. The air sharpens. The heater panics. The tiny fibers in the comforter crisp against each other. He inhales and says, "Okay." It is not surrender. It is the word you use when you agree to see what is already in the room. The phone on the nightstand, still off the hook, breathes once through its tiny speaker. We never hear a door open, but something changes position. The room sounds bigger, not echoing, exactly, but less padded, like someone has lifted the carpet from the floor between heartbeats. Eric stands, a soft thud as his knee brushes the bed frame. He takes one step toward the bathroom. On the soundtrack there's a smear of sound like cloth dragged over tile. Then, another voice. It arrives without a throat, where a voice should not be able to stand, and it says, very close. It's late. The words stack on top of each other. Years in the middle. He does the bravest thing he could have done. He answers, "I know." It is a statement, not an apology. He doesn't ask what it wants. He doesn't waste time with why. He says, "I'm leaving," and the voice, if you can call it that, changes shape into something that is not a word, and is somehow more legible. Like the wind, deciding to walk upright. The bathroom fan turns itself on, stuttering. The water bead that had clung stubbornly to the faucet lets go and breaks in the basin like a tiny Latin animal falling. At 2:11 a.m., the smoke detector chirps a single thin cry. Batteries, a warning meant for daylight. It repeats after 60 seconds, but the minute stretches, bells and wires pulling, until the room forgets what 60 means. Eric picks up the recorder, and you can hear the fabric of his jacket rasp. He says, "Listen." He's not talking to me, not to the file, but to whatever has made the room larger, the night closer. We listen with him. There is, at last, a simple sound, a footstep inside the bathroom, where no one stands. He runs. Not out the door. You can hear the chain stop him, but to the window. The curtains roar as they move, that cheap polyester thunder. He slaps the latch and pushes. The pane resists with the stubbornness of unpracticed escape, then blinks open with a wet seal-breaking sigh. Cold air floods in. The smell of resin from the pines, the big, clean cold that belongs to the outside. The recorder drops to the carpet with a soft hump and turns, so the microphone faces the bed. We hear the mattress rise, as if someone stands on it. Gently. Something reaches the window first. We know because Eric's voice half in half outsplits like water around a rock. He gasps, not in pain, but in recognition, which is worse. The lamp nearest the window stutters and dies, and its chain tick-tick-ticks against the ceramic base. The hallway camera outside, still rolling, still foggy, captures a thin stripe of light under the door, wink out as if a body had stopped it. Inside the tape, the cold deepens until the microphone begins to distort, a square wave around a hollow center. What happens next is not visible, but it is heard. A long exhale moves from the bathroom to the bed to the window in a single, dreadful line, as if the room itself has decided on a direction. Eric says, "Don't take," and then there is a sound I cannot name. It is a hinge without a door, a throat without a mouth, a sentence without a word. The recorder keens with proximity overload. The bed springs compress once, as for a kneel. The window, finally, comes down swift and sure, shutting the cold out. Or in. At 2:14 a.m., the tape stops by itself. Not at the end of the cassette. This is digital. There is no end, but at a built-in boundary we did not program. When the front desk opens at 6, Jenna knocks. Then again, then opens 3:08 to the chain and sees the bag by the door. The phone off the hook. The curtains breathing slow with the drafts the heater can't swallow. The bed is made perfectly. The bathroom floor is dry. The only wet is a ring on the nightstand where a mug never sat. The window is locked from the inside. The investigation that followed was thin as breath in winter. No prints worth naming. No card activity after 11. The dashcam on his rental holds only a dark lot, and the pale ghost of a handprint thawing on the hood, as if something had leaned there to consider him. The motel replaced the smoke detector and repainted the ceiling. The stain returned in 2 days, fingers reaching, not where they had been, but a little closer to the door. Room 308 rents often. Montana is full of hunters, auditors, nurses between shifts. People sleep. Mostly I've been back twice since. The first time I brought a thermal camera and a priest who didn't tell me that's what he was. The second time I brought nothing, no expectations, no recorder, only a willingness to be bored by ordinary night. The boredom never arrived. From 1:50 a.m. to 2:10 a.m., the room held its breath like a swimmer under ice. In that held breath, the mirror made its tiny tick. The heater exhaled dust that smelled like old pennies and cut pine, and someone walked the hall in a way that left no weight at all. There's a moment in every case where you decide whether to let the story into your mouth. To say it out loud is to agree to carry it. In the audio, before the tape ends, there's a whisper I didn't hear until I listened at quarter speed. Volume up. Lights on. It isn't Eric. It isn't a word I know, but it has the cadence of a name, my name, I swear. Though I won't flatter myself by thinking it travels that far. Stories, after all, cross state lines more easily than we do. They learn doors. They learn windows. If you check into the Northern Pines Motor Lodge, ask for any room but 308, you'll get a shrug. Sometimes the desk is new, and Jenna has moved away, and the night clerk barely looks up, and the highway keeps its own counsel. You will key into a room with the same furniture, the same smell, the same mirror that hesitates. You'll set your alarm. You'll pace a little, then stop, because a sound will arrive that doesn't belong to you, and then another, and the air will arrange itself around your name, even if no one says it. I could tell you that the file corrupted for a rational reason. I could tell you that men go missing in winter all the time up here, that they step outside into a world made of glass, and everything slips. I could also tell you that the thing which leaned on the hood left 5 long parallel melt tracks, like a hand with an extra finger had rested there to listen, patient as weather. Both versions are true in the way a story is true. It changes nothing, and then it changes the way you walk down a hallway forever. Sometimes, late, I play the first minute again. The quiet breath, the nervous pen, the heater finding its rhythm. I wait for the scrape under the door, for the footstep inside a room that should have run out of floor, for the single syllable that is not a word. I wait for the mirror to tick, even though mirrors shouldn't tick. And when the tape approaches to 14 a.m., I stop it. Not because I'm afraid of what comes next, but because endings deserve to be where a person puts them, not where a room decides they go.